Mai. Good afternoon. Welcome along to Manx Radio's Man in Line for a Monday. Hope you had a lovely weekend. 24th of November, yeah, Christmas just around the corner, eh? Now, it's an open line through until 1 o'clock. Alex sitting in for Andy once again as he's under the weather. What would you like to talk about today? Well, in the news, school meals raises its head again. The Minister for Education, Daphne Kane, says they're tweaking. But is this the nanny state poking its nose in where you don't want to? Has the new menu gone down well? And if so, how do you justify it? The amount of school dinners going down by about 20%. What's your thoughts on that? Also, when it comes to MiCards, there's going to be a drop-in session at Markwell House on Wednesday from 9:30 to 12:30 with 4 of the island's banks to assist people in opening a bank account. There we go. We can get banks together when we want them to be. So the Treasury Minister says that at the end of the year, the current MiCard will stop, and those who can't get a bank account will be issued new cards in the new year, but they're valid for only a year, and the department needs to engage with those who haven't made contact yet. That's about 600 residents. So if you've not been in touch yet, get in touch. Okay. And also Money Val. We hear a lot about this, don't we? And I know it's very much high on the agenda when it comes to politicians and the Justice and Home Affairs Minister, Jane Poole Wilson. But do you understand what it is? Any idea what it is? Money Val? Okay, we're talking about money laundering and, whether we are going to feature on a grey list or not. Are you concerned about the possible effects if we do? Has it been explained to you, or is it something that is being explained to you in the way that, well, the educated people know what we're talking about, so that's absolutely fine. So, I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of these topics or anything else that's getting your goat at the moment. 66 13 68 is the number to call. Just a reminder then, back to that top story, was that back in September, the Education Department announced a shake-up of the island's school meals menu. It cut the amount of ultra-processed foods, the amount of Manx produce, and swapped desserts for fruit and milk. Meanwhile, recent figures show the number of primary school pupils opting for a school meal has then fallen by around 20% over the course of the year, with more pupils bringing in their own packed lunch. Lewis Foster has been speaking to the Education Minister, Daphne Kane.
Well, obviously, it's disappointing that there has undoubtedly been a swing towards packed lunch for some children on certain days. It's very hard to take a snapshot of particular days and know what was driving that necessarily, because some schools have children that come in or out depending on that day's menu and whether they like the meal that's on offer. But obviously, from a department perspective, it's a very healthy, nutritious meal that we offer, and we are listening to pupil feedback, parent feedback, and importantly the kitchen and teacher feedback as to how we can tweak the menu offering so it appeals to the widest number of children, so that we can continue to deliver really healthy, nutritious meals. And importantly, reducing that ultra-processed content. I accept that change is hard, but it is coming from a really good place with really high quality. And I believe we're now hitting about 25% Manx produce content.
Do you accept that this new menu introduced in September has had an effect on the number of people taking school meals?
Interestingly, in a few schools. Other schools have seen a small increase in uptake of school meals or stayed about the same. I think that's partly peer pressure. There's a lot of, I want to go on packed lunch if my friend's going on packed lunch. I suppose where we are, we want to make a healthy meal, the healthy choice, the easy choice, and appeal to more pupils. And I think particularly when you come into January and the cold weather, and possibly the novelty of a new packed lunch bag may have worn off a little bit. The hot meal may be more appealing. We are also really listening to the feedback over the choices. So we're tweaking what's on the salad bar and potentially the fruit selection that is unlimited. And also in terms of the choices where we've always got the non-meat offering and the veggie offering and the, which dishes best go side by side so that there is real choice there for children. So I can only say that the primary school meals team has been working unbelievably hard and is really, really focused on making our meal offering the most appealing, the easy choice. So it's potentially early days, and we will continue to monitor, we will continue to respond to feedback, and we we will continue to deliver excellent quality, low ultra-processed, brilliant, nutritious Manx produce as much as possible meals.
You were very proud, and the department was very proud of the amount of UPFs that you'd managed to reduce out of the school menu, the amount of Manx produce in there. Realistically, how many tweaks can you make before you have to start going back on some of those pinpoints that were highlighted at the time?
Yeah, we are looking, for instance, at whether ketchup would tip a few more pupils into choosing the meal. Obviously, we have to source low sugar, low salt option on that. We have enabled and allowed mayonnaise to be served with the tuna wraps or the tuna dishes of the day. And we are looking very much at having a seasonal treat. So obviously schools will be gearing up to their festive menus, and there will potentially be, made in our own kitchens, a seasonal shortbread treat. And we'll look at doing something like that for other seasonal treats in other terms. But it's driving good habits, really healthy food, and the awareness of what healthy food is.
That's the Minister for Education, Daphne Kane, talking there. You heard her use the words nutritious, healthy a lot. Not once tasty or appetising, okay? And, it's about driving this and driving that, okay? Is this the nanny state telling parents, actually, whether you like it or not, we're going to force this through, okay? In a nice free society. Because she says there she's going to be listening to teacher feedback. I have to say, I've had a few teachers that I know who, off the record, will say that it's some of the stuff is ludicrous. Burger Day now, for your primary school children, is a burger with no bread, not allowed ketchup, so a dry burger. And you sit there going, if you were choosing your food, would you like that? Or do we feel that the government is doing the right thing and forcing our children to have only healthy food? Well, we'll see. And Lewis made the point there as to how long, if these figures continue, that back on the 6th of January, 66.6% of children we're having a school lunch. It's now down to 49.7%. Okay, in the private sector, that would not be classed as a success. But let me know your thoughts and opinions. Do you think this is good? Do you think this is bad? Do you think it's about time that the government looked again and stopped telling parents what children should be having, and basically stop the children voting with their feet? I'd love to know your opinions on all of that. 66 13 68. Let's go to the phones now. And he's bright and early on today. It is Julian. Hello, Julian.
Hi, Alex. Funny you should mention the term nanny state, because that might be pertinent to what I want to talk about.
Go on then.
Just quickly before, though, I noticed the traffic monitoring road studs that have been embedded into the middle of both carriageways at Santon Main Road. I can't imagine that's good for motorbikes, me being a biker as well, either from the adhesion point of view, or if you imagine up there, it can get quite foggy and, at nights and shorter days now. Mm-hmm. You normally capsize in the middle of the road on the white line, not in the middle of the carriageway. So you could conceivably have bikers that don't know the road, come over, who might go to the left of it out of instinct and end up scraping along the pavement edge, I would have thought. And I just wonder why there are multiple ones of those traffic counters, because that would kind of infer measuring speed, wouldn't it, if you've got several of them?
I've never come across these before, Julian. I mean, what are, because the ones I always know, the ones that they're like rubber strips that they used to temporarily put across the roads, didn't they, to monitor stuff? Is this something permanent, is it?
Well, apparently they are Bluetooth activated. So as a vehicle goes over it, they send a message to probably a nearby within 30-foot sensor thing that's going to pick up the signal. But is this a sign that we're going to end up with like a reduced speed on the Santon Strait now or something? I mean, how would it go? But speaking of all that, yesterday I really enjoyed listening to the excellent programme that Howard Kane did on Old News in the morning, when he spoke about 20-mile-per-hour speed limits being imposed on the island in the 1950s, including Port Erin, Port St Mary, Castletown, Main Road, Onken, etc. But guess what? He also mentioned a very interesting newspaper clip, which I've had a look at. This is from the Isle of Man Times of May the 3rd, 1957, and there's a very big front-page headline: "Speed limit is a farce," with Castletown Commissioners Board member Mr. J.F. Corlett saying, and I'll quote from what he said in the paper, "I think the 20 mile per hour speed limit is a farce and people treat it as a farce." And by 1959, many parts of the island, including Port Erin and Port St Mary, had reverted back to 30 miles per hour. And the implementation was carried out by the local commissioners. So back in the 50s and 60s, local authorities had control over the speed limit. I'm wondering if that's still the case now, or has something changed? And I'm noticing that the DOI minister seems to be cherry-picking the nature of this. Like, for example, oh, no, we're going to say where the 20-mile-an-hour speed limits are, but at the same time, pushing hedge and tree trimming along with leaf clearance of drains to the local authorities. So there's a bit of cherry-picking going on here, isn't there, Alex?
Well, I would probably argue that in terms of trying to reduce a budget of a department, and of course we've all heard about how the DOI is too big and too cumbersome, that if you're trying to offload different services, things like hedge trimming and drain clearing possibly is the things you'd be looking at offloading to others to do. I'm not sure whether it would be linked with the speed limit, because of course the 20 mile an hour speed limit did come out of this motion from that Anne Corlett put in and that Tynwald voted on, and you could argue that the original spirit of the motion has been, shall we say, somewhat amplified as it's gone through the department of the DOI.
Yeah, I'd 100% agree with you on that. But you know what? If we're going to talk about going back to 20 mile per hour rollout, when a commissioner in 1957 said that it was a farce, just a quick look at improvements in safety for road vehicles since the late 50s. Mm-hmm. So if you look at stopping distances, they've been reduced by 85%, and that's down to the modern tyres going from the old cross plies to radials, chassis design, anti-locking brakes, traction control. Skidding under panic braking has been virtually eliminated. You can still steer even if you're applying maximum brake pedal pressure. Oversteer and understeer have been halved. But I noticed, and I'll thank Howard for this, there's a worrying statistic in the Journal of Epidemiology and Community Health by Phil Edwards, PhD, and he states that, and this is a very recent paper, EVs and hybrids are twice as likely to injure or kill pedestrians or cyclists compared to an internal combustion engine vehicle. So I thought, well, that's only one paper, but...
Why is that? Why is that, Julian? What are the reasons behind the difference between... Because I've got a hybrid and I've also got a petrol car, and I don't feel that I brake any differently in either. So what's the reasoning behind it?
There's two main reasons. The first one is people can't hear them.
Oh, right, yeah.
Especially these days, you know, even with earbuds on, you can hear a car coming if it's an internal combustion engine. Mm-hmm. And the second reason is, if you take the equivalent car, but an EV, it's 30% to 35% heavier, so you've got more inertia. Okay. So if you're struck at 20 mile an hour. But this paper, I thought, well, it's just one. However, it's backed up by another Chinese study in Changshu, China, which, of course, they've got more EVs per head than anyone else. Mm-hmm. That paper is called Exploration of Crash Features of Electric Vehicles with Traffic Crash Data in Changshu, China.
My gosh, that's a short title for a paper, isn't it? Crikey.
Well, it is, yeah. But I find it kind of interesting that if we're going to do this on the basis of safety, the fact that you can't hear them coming, I mean, I'm not knocking the vehicle, I'm just saying this is physics. Unless you're going to start putting speakers on the front of the car that sound like a V8 or something. But you also got this idea that there's more weight behind it when it hits you. So they're saying it's literally twice the rate of injury and death with pedestrians and cyclists from EVs. So
the question I put to you then, Julian, is if that is the case. I mean, I know full well they add sounds to EVs, but they're not very loud. But they do, because they don't have to have any noise at all, and some of them have some kind of sounds and almost like a musical tone to them. But if EVs are heavier, which is a fact because the batteries are heavier, which means that they are harder to stop. Do you think that reducing the speed limit is part of the fact that actually if we're going to have to slow vehicles down because they won't stop as easily with these heavier vehicles that are coming on stream now? So the fact that everyone's changing over, or the substantial proportion of people are changing over to EVs, does that mean that that's a driver behind 20 mile an hour speed limits?
Except they're not. the EV market's tanking. The only markets that are showing any kind of increase in them is fleet markets, a bit like the post office ordering 26 of them or whatever. Or you've got the sleight of hand that's being done by the Chinese where, for example, that water park in northern Australia, out of season, they're putting thousands of their electric vehicles, they're registering them, although they're not actually sold to anyone, but it looks good on the figures, and they're putting them in car parks. And the same thing, a lot of unwanted EVs in China.
But, I mean, in terms of the speed limit itself, though, forget the EV market, do you think a justification for reducing the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit could be the advent of these heavier vehicles on our roads? Looking at the speed limit argument.
Well, in that case, then, we shouldn't do it, should we? Especially when you think about all the problems with it and all the pollution issues with production and the fact that it's basically the tailpipe might be clean, but it's still connected to the power station to charge it up. Mm-hmm. But, this whole idea of a 20 speed limit, I mean, you've got the other side of this. People, especially the study in Brussels, they had a big uptick in accidents because people were getting frustrated. Well, it's equivalent to following a tractor around everywhere, even at night.
I'm not going to lie. I did do a bit of an experiment over the weekend, and knowing full I'll probably be back on this programme again talking about 20-mile-an-hours, in the lead-up of Whitebridge into Onken, I decided to drive it at 20 miles an hour, which is one of the proposed areas, through Main Road in Onken. It is very difficult to stay that slow. The difference between 20 and 30 does seem to be really quite a dramatic difference. So it will be interesting in practice to see whether we end up like back in the 50s where the public turns around and goes, well, actually, we're not standing for this anymore. Because surely...
No, I mean...
I was going to say, surely public pressure is there to make politicians do as they're told. They're representing us, not the other way around.
Yeah, I mean, when you've got a 1957 local newspaper saying speed limit is a farce, maybe we should just think for a minute before we allow this to happen. And I am curious, if it was the commissioners and local authorities that were controlling whether the speed limits were implemented or not, I want to know if they can do that now, because it sounded like Kurt Michael wasn't too keen on it from the commissioner's point of view. Let's find out.
Good call. Thank you, Julian. And if David Quirk's listening, he's a commissioner and rings in regularly. He can probably ring up and tell us. So always lovely to speak to you, Julian. Take care.
Thanks, Alex.
Cheers. Bye. Always great to speak to Julian. A number of people who say, you always have a go at Julian. It's actually, we enjoy the debate. It's rather good fun. Julian talking about the 20-mile-an-hour speed limits, nothing new. Well, this is it. It was basically back to the 50s. Listening to Julian on the lack of hedgerow and drainage maintenance, apparently that's down to Phil Gaughan's time as DOI Minister. We'll have to ask Phil about that. When he put the responsibility on them onto local authorities, knowing full well they had neither the manpower, resources or budget to carry them out, says Fran. Now, Julian was saying that they've been put back on the local authorities, not from Phil Gaughan's time. So thank you, Fran, for that, but we will have to check that out. Here we go. Most EVs have anti-collision automatic braking systems. Julian is out of touch, apparently. Thank you very much for that. Also, thank you to the texter in on 767 who says, some of the children who have school dinners come from homes whose income doesn't allow for the children to have certain foods like nice desserts other than fruit or yogurt. This is a treat for them. Surely this could be on the menu 2 or 3 times a day. Or I presume that's meant to be weak. In the 60s and 70s, the meals were mostly appetising and healthy. Time for the government stopped interfering in children's lives and leave it to the parents who they belong to. Thank you very much for that. And maybe the reason a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit is being considered is because a lot of motorists don't adhere to the 30-mile-an-hour limit, often driving near 40 in some rural areas. Rural areas? Rurals are normally de-restricted or 50. Are you talking about residential areas? Perhaps if it's reduced to 20 miles an hour, maybe we'll achieve some 30 miles an hour. I see where you're going with that one, but it doesn't really make sense. If a limit's there, it's a limit. And if it's not being enforced, well, maybe it should be enforced. Oh dear, what's this? Thank you to Texter 011. I've no idea what you're on about. Something to do with anoraks. But anyway, they said they were falling asleep. And final one on the text for a minute. 762. Alex, how on earth did we ever manage with the lovely school meals that used to be served that never did any harm to us, ever? The dinners at Victoria Road in Castletown were stuff of legend and no child went hungry. Brenda was the best cook ever. Oh, well done, Brenda. Sadly, the happy, clappy, fluffy, woofy, bunny, woody brigade have taken over school dinners and seem intent on getting rid of them altogether to save money. And if Daphne Kane thinks a squirt of tomato sauce or mayo will get her re-elected, she's mistaken. Thank you very much for that. It's low sugar, low sodium tomato ketchup. Okay. Do remember that one. Right, let's go back to the phones. Been waiting patiently. We've got Ken who wants to talk about MiCards this afternoon. Good afternoon, Ken. Hello, Ken. Are you there? Nope. No sign of Ken. Well, that's interesting. The joy of technology once again proving its worth. I'll try once more. Ken, are you there? No. No sign of Ken. Sorry, Ken. Right, we will try and see who is on line 3 this afternoon. And it's Stephen, I believe. Stephen, are you there?
I am here. Are you hearing me?
I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you loud and clear, yes. Yeah. Fire away, Stephen.
Well, all that talk of school dinners. Good afternoon, Alex, and good afternoon, listeners, everybody. The talk of school dinners reminded me of the cheese and potato and onion pies. I used to love them.
Oh, they were good. I had those as well. And also then it was followed with, what was it? Sponge with pink icing and desiccated coconut on the top.
Yes, that's absolutely.
Yes.
Happy days. Eh? They saved me going hungry and starving.
Exactly. Nothing wrong with them. And we're still here, aren't we, Stephen?
Now, what I'd like to talk about, if I may, is the issue of MiCards and the Treasury Minister's interpretation, because it doesn't appear to me that he's continuing with the Chief Minister's spirit of the amendment that he successfully moved to the removal of MiCards, and that was that for any reason people will be able to re-engage with their MiCard when these current cards run out, and they will be running until a resolution is found. So I think that the narrative that the Treasury Minister is pushing is not one of for any reason. He seems to be continuing with this narrative of not having a bank account, which Alex brings me to the next point, and I do think that these two issues go together.
Okay.
And that is the issue of access to cash in the community, because you probably notice, like I do, that a great number of banks have closed their branches, certainly from Castletown up round the west coast, Peel, all the outlying districts, and right round to Ramsey, and to a large degree, I have to say, in Douglas and the smaller areas of Douglas where post offices and bank branches used to be, they have closed. Now, you may or may not be aware, Alex, and listeners, that in the UK, and I don't often want to compare us to the UK because we're not a county, we're a country, but nevertheless we have to in this case, the UK have introduced, by virtue of their Financial Conduct Authority in conjunction with banks, access to cash within the community. And in areas where they can't, they use the post office. We have had a report done, not by the Financial Supervision Commission, but by the Department for Enterprise, I think it was 2 years ago, about access to cash in the community, and it's not really been acted upon. So I hope that the only person that did mention this issue in the Keys on the debate, or in Tynwald, on the debate, was Chris Thomas, and he always comes up trumps with these things, where he did mention access to cash within the community. So I would like to hope that the Treasury Minister will stop this narrative of it's only the issue of getting people onto bank accounts where branches are non-existent, and re-examine the whole issue of access to cash in the community. And I do think that is a big issue, Alex and listeners.
Stephen, do you feel that, because you've mentioned there that there's legislation in the UK that, protects access to cash, and whilst we seem to pick and choose over here bits of legislation we copy from the UK, we're very picky with when the government says, Manx solutions to Manx problems, and then it just imports stuff when it's easy. Do you not feel that maybe that over here, effectively, we do need to stand up to banks? We need to grow a pair in terms of the government and actually put this legislation in place to protect the cash?
I absolutely do, Alex, and I do hope that the Chief Minister will say to the Treasury Minister, this is what the will of Tynwald is. Now, don't forget, Alex Allinson, when he was asked about the increase in the minimum wage, said it was the will of Tynwald. Now, we've had the will of Tynwald twice now. Mm-hmm. One is to continue with MiCard, and we've had a report on MiCard, and we've had a report on access to cash in the community, but it's not been acted upon. Now, a cynic may say, Alex, that the current head of the post office has worked in conjunction with the Treasury to close an awful lot of small post office branches. Has it been because he knows he's not staying on the island? That's been reported in social media that he's leaving and not going to stay committed to the Isle of Man. And some cynics might say, these things are done because it's easier for that person to get away with it. They're not going to be remaining here. So
I would probably argue, Stephen, that whilst that's a more cynic and possibly a little bit on the conspiracy theory side, with no evidence to support it, the thing that you do highlight there is that it is the will of Tynwald. Now, this is where, sadly, that the highest court in the land, Tynwald, the will seems to be able to be ignored. I mean, the DOI is a fantastic example of ignoring the will of Tynwald when it comes to things like the horse trams were a will of Tynwald and they just ignored it. So in terms of the will of Tynwald, government can just ignore it.
Yes, it's one of the drawbacks of our system. Mm. And if you've got a minister who is really intent on carrying out a policy that is not in conjunction with the public mood, or the will of the members of Tynwald, well, it would appear to me there's not a great deal you can do, and the only people that would be able to do this is the members or the voters in that particular constituency. It's not like the UK where a particular party has a policy that the majority don't agree with, and next minute they're out. Well, in this case, for the DOI and the Treasury, the only people that can exercise that power to express their discontent with the policy of the minister is the constituents of the various constituents they represent, which is a negative aspect of our governance.
Well, at risk of, and a final one here, Stephen, a question for you, because I've got some other calls to go to. At risk of possibly sounding a bit like Bonzo, do we need to look at a change to our system? If Tynwald is the ultimate court in the land and it votes for something, surely there should be a mechanism in place, which means that departments, civil servants and everything else, you do as you're told, surely.
Well, governments have to govern, obviously, and they have a programme, but where the programme doesn't have the support of Tynwald, they're very reluctant to get rid of people. It is something that I think should be looked at to ensure that where a majority in Tynwald vote against the policy or do not support it, then the minister has to, and the department, incidentally, because the minister is not the entire department. No. They have a big group of civil servants who run that department, and sometimes it may well be that their own view is that the will of Tynwald should be continued, but if their civil servants don't support the will of Tynwald, what does happen?
Well, good point. Thank you, Stephen, for your call. Always lovely to speak to you. Speak to you soon. Take care. Frank says, hi, Alex. We pay the road tax, sorry. Okay, vehicle tax, I think you're referring to there, Frank. How come they're as bad as third world? Because the government hardly spends any money to keep them in good condition. I haven't got a huge amount of evidence to go against that. Yeah, our roads are in a very bad state. Thank you to Ian, who says, Alex, I'm sorry to say, it does smack of nanny state regarding children's meals. We all seem to manage in my day as a kid, which I admit is a long time ago, but now surely it should be up to children and their parents what the kids eat. It almost feels the attitude prevails is in Soviet Russia from the Department of Education regarding school meals. It's a case of we know best regardless of the children or their parents. Thank you very much for your comments on that one. David's been on. Hi, Alex. How silly does it sound for this present administration to make us look when headline on today's news is that we hear the Education Minister discussing whether ketchup should be offered to pupils? What a waste of time and money. Thank you, David, for that. Speaking of school meals, he's been waiting patient. We'll talk to Juan after this.
The area plan for the North and West would have completed the planning picture for the island, but it was defeated in an extraordinary vote in Tynwald with both Keys and Ledgecote tied, which meant the President of Tynwald had to use his casting vote, which by convention means voting against change. So what happened in Tynwald, and why did Tynwald vote to defeat this plan, which was the result of around 5 years' hard work by officers? On agenda this evening at 5:30pm on Manx Radio with me, Phil Gorn, we hear some of the highlights of this unprecedented vote. Were the Tynwald members who voted against right to demand facts and detail to back up the shaky housing figures?
Playing with crypto will make you rich, right? Look, a celebrity is posting about it on social media, so it's got to be safe. And now, you're only a click away from a fortune. Go on. You've just been scammed. Online scams are everywhere. Fake crypto posts, wild claims, pressure to act fast. It's not a game. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. Always verify the people trying to take your money. A message brought to you by Isle of Man Bankers Association, Financial Crime Partnership, the Isle of Man Constabulary, and the Cyber Security Centre for the Isle of Man. For further information, visit csc.gov.im.
I'm so excited. Mum says we can go to Ramsey Garden Centre to get our Christmas decorations. They've got everything for Christmas in store now, from lights and trees to decorations and lovely gifts. Our Christmas always starts with a visit to Ramsey Garden Centre. It's open every day.
Flu season is here, but never fear, so is the chance to protect yourself. Whether you qualify for a free NHS flu jab or would like a private vaccination for just £20, Kingsley Mooti has made it quick and easy to get protected. Visit Kingsley Mooti on Facebook or call 625 040. Get your flu jab today with Kingsley Mooti.
Christmas, twinkling lights, a nip in the air, gatherings with friends and family, and the perfect time to enjoy a delicious glass of Bush's Manx beer. Available in all the island's finest establishments. And remember, Bush's is the only brewery supporting Manx farmers by using locally grown barley in our brews. So enjoy a Bush's this Christmas and take a taxi or bus home. Bush's, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a hoppy new beer.
Station, Manx Radio.
Manx Radio's Mannin line, 20 to 1 this Monday afternoon. A few of your WhatsApps in. Thank you to Terry, who says, I wonder if the Tynwald canteen is using the same metrics as the schools regarding sauce and mayo. Very good. Also, Texter 500 says, how many more U-turns are our ministers in the Cannon administration going to make? Did Daphne Kane really think children would eat tuna without any sauce? I did think that was a bit strange. Just tuna without... Oh, yeah. Okay. Very, very dry. But thank you for that one. Also, Texter 185 says, maybe if all parents fed their children healthy meals and there were no overweight children, the government wouldn't have to interfere. Well, that's a good point. But the argument is, in a free society, are you free to be fat? Okay? Are you free to smoke and do things that are scientifically proven to kill yourself in a free society? That's the question. We don't necessarily always have to do things that are good for us. Okay, that is the question, and it's a very big one, I know. I did like the one from William saying we were talking to Julian about EVs. He said, "Shall we have people walking in front of EVs with a red flag, Like when automobiles were first invented. After horse and carts disappeared, things changed. What you have to remember is in the 50s, 60s and 70s, there wasn't as much traffic on the roads. Driving during lockdown took me back. It was brilliant. It was rather nice during lockdown driving, I'm not going to lie. And thank you very much to Texter 623 who says, Alex, just to clarify, the Isle of Man government cannot ignore the will of Tynwald. The reason it's been able to defer the horse tram scheme is because the vote was made in a previous house and no longer has to be followed up. The reason the horse trams were not featured, sorry to counteract you here, but the scheme was de-scoped from the promenade to save money, and they used the powers of the 1984 Treasury Act, which means they didn't have to ask permission from Tynwald. They just did it. Once again, some could argue, undemocratically. So that was the point that was being made. But they have ignored the will of Tynwald so far. So that's the point. The will of Tynwald, there's no legal mechanism. It's just the will of the Parliament. And the way things are set up. And Dewan has been waiting patiently. Dewan, let's talk food.
That's always my favourite subject, Alex. Right? I believe the Tynwald canteen is very good and very cheap. Actually, I haven't experienced it. I don't know whether you have. You've got more connections than me.
You've got to be kidding. They wouldn't let me. They would not let me through the door. But I would imagine there's definitely ketchup and mayonnaise in there.
Yeah, I would think so. How are you anyway? I believe after that comment last week of someone spotting you in a onesie.
Yes.
And I remember when I was over there a few months ago, I seen you on your electric bike, and I have this vision of you going round on your electric bike on your onesie. That would be the extent of eccentricity in its finest, wouldn't it?
I can assure you that there is no way I ever go on a bike wearing a onesie, yes. But poor Sue in Tesco will be scarred for life. I can bless her.
Oh, the day might come. I'm sure you're always up for experiencing new things.
Oh, obviously.
Just listening to Stephen there. It's a conversation itself there. We're talking about the will of Tynwald and cash, but I'll leave that to another day because that's quite a long one. The school meals. I'm not a great lover on quite a lot of stuff that government does, but I know they're trying to push the genie back in the bottle, and that's a hard one. And I think one of your callers just mentioned there before about education, and I think that's kind of my point that I'm coming to. I remember last year before, I had the honour of dining in the Ramsey Grammar School canteen when I was coaching down there, and looking at the stuff that they're presenting there, and you look at bread products now. I mean, bread was I think originally invented to fill soldiers up for the war. That's all it was invented for. Going back in the Earl of Sandwich days, but they're doing massive big sausage rolls in the school and stuff, which if you look at the legal percentage of sausage rolls, 12% is the legal percentage of actually meat product in it. So there's very little goodness in the stuff, but it is education, I think. And I mean, if we look at the massive queue that was outside McDonald's when it opened 2 weeks ago, I believe, I mean, that kind of says it all, really, doesn't it?
Do you feel, Julian, though, you've mentioned there education, and it's a case of it carrot or a stick. Carrot obviously being quite healthy, because you yourself have been on many times talking about companies and governments with DEI policies and things like this. Do you think that the answer is more encouragement, education, and effectively letting people make their own choice, or do you think they should be forced into a decision by government because it's good for them? That I think that's the two arguments, isn't it?
Putting it bluntly, Andy, Andy, there's you calling me Julian, there's me calling you Andy.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry.
Putting it bluntly, if the school got off this wokeism and DEI and stopped teaching kids how to be transgenders and Muslims and actually taught them about goodness of food, we might be getting somewhere, mightn't we?
I would possibly argue that the two are very different topics, but in terms of the food, if you're using the argument as to whether we encourage people to have healthy food rather than remove it from them altogether to make the food unappealing and unpalatable, surely that's not going to have the success you want it to have.
No, it's not, and I think people need to be educated about farming and the goodness of foods. And again now, I mean, a lot of imported vegetables and farming is coated in chemicals and a peel that's put on orange skins, which goes into the stuff. So again, back to local farming and local support of our own produce to make us sustainable. And that all comes in line with, I think, the subject, Alex. And I think it's been mentioned on here before. I think I've mentioned it. Julian's mentioned it about the lack of D&D free. And there's no testing, I don't think, on the island now for levels of vitamins in people. And I think that, again, should be brought into schools. An education for kids on their own health and positivity and dentistry, because again with mental health issues it links into that. If kids are obese, they don't feel good within themselves and they become insular.
I mean, I have to say to you, Dewan, when it comes to, and sorry, this is the final point because I know I've got a couple of people waiting to get on as well, that you mentioned there, obviously, about local food and farming. I mean, I myself, I've lost a lot of weight in the last couple of years. It is more expensive.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's more expensive to eat healthy food, but also when it comes to all these chemicals and fertilizers, possibly the reason that we are able to feed such a global population is because of these mass farming methods. Now, if we went down to, existing off local food only, we wouldn't be able to feed the population, would we?
Well, on your first point there, Alex, I've got to say you looked absolutely brilliant when you lost so much weight. I've got to give you that one.
Thank you, Jim. You don't look so bad yourself, but thank you. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but you're not seeing me. Is that down to? I mean, you're looking at food and food products. Food comes out of the ground.
Yes.
And food that comes from a factory is a product. And I think that's the basic difference, isn't it? I mean, food comes out of the ground. Why is it now so more expensive to actually produce the stuff over the last few years? Is that because of the regulations that farmers have got to put up with now, and also the cost of fertilizers? And again, my point is, why don't we go back to where we were years ago, which done no one any harm? Good quality food with manure, seaweed and kelp and all that kind of stuff, which is sown back into the ground. So is it because we're in this new world of doing that? And I look around at the places that I go to, Alex, in the world, and there's masses of land that can be used, masses and masses of land. I just come from Africa, and I mean the amount of foodstuffs in South Africa. You go into the supermarkets, they're stacked to the hilt of foodstuffs, of they're growing it on their own lands. So I don't know why it's not achievable to grow product from the ground at a good price, and the farmers still make a living. It's got to be the regulations and costs imposed by government on a lot of stuff.
Okay, thanks, June. Thanks for your comments as always. Lovely to speak to you, and hope to speak to June again soon. And I won't call him Julian, and he won't call me Andy. Donna is on wanting to talk about school meals as well. Hello, Donna. Thanks for waiting. I've lost Donna as well. Where's Donna gone? Donna, are you there? No? Donna comes through on line 4. I think line 4 is not happy with me today. So sorry about that, Donna. I did try. Bonzo, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Sorry.
What's the matter with sounding like me?
No, I was trying not to. It works both ways. I was trying not to cast aspersions that you might be offended at sounding like me. So there we go. Take it that way.
I wouldn't be offended at sounding like you.
There we go.
Why on earth would I be offended at sounding like you?
It's very kind of you.
Yes, a couple of quick points.
Go on.
Firstly, access to cash. Yes, absolutely. Because what will people do if they get cash on the Isle of Man?
Well, spend it, I presume.
Yes. They will spend it in the local economy. And that's the point. Cash can then go into local businesses, and then it goes around creating circular flow, etc., and sustaining the local economy. If you put something into somebody's bank account, they can just go on Amazon.
That's a very good point. Yeah, I've not thought of it that way. Yeah, you rarely take cash away with you, do you?
No. So yes, more cash, please. There's a Manx solution for a Manx problem. And going on to school food.
Yes.
Well, I was looking at the photographs that you've got on the website.
Yeah.
On the headline of the story of, and yeah, God, I can see why some of the children say no thank you to that. I remember when there were marvellous plates full of stuff which would get you through the day, such as liver and onions and gravy. Oh, loved that. And apple pie and custard. and that sort of caramel tart.
Yes, I'd forgotten about that. Yes, it was on like a pastry base. Yeah.
All fantastic stuff, which actually gave you the calories and stuff to get through the day. As to why people might be fat, well, less physical activity, and that's allied to how schools have playing fields or don't have playing fields, and it's a whole bigger issue. But also, I might add, perhaps it has to do with the fact that kids no longer have e-numbers in everything. Because when we had e-numbers in everything, oh my God, we could play all day.
I was going to say, yeah, you'd be pulling you down off the ceiling if you had e-numbers in anything, wouldn't you, back then? So what would you...
Yes, well, orange squash, of course. The reason that it was orange had nothing to do with oranges. It was because there was an E121 tartrazine.
Oh, crikey, yeah, that rings a bell for my childhood. So what's your thoughts then, Bonzo, quickly, on what you think should be done with the school dinners? Do you think they should be sticking to their guns, or do you think they should be, shall we say, bending the rules a bit to go back and offer some things that aren't necessarily 100% healthy? Is it all about balance?
Yes, it's all about balance, and the idea of having a school meal is that somebody eats it.
Well, good point. There's not much point having a meal if no one's going to eat it, is there, I suppose?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Bonzo. Lovely to speak to you, or speak to myself, depending if I'm sounding like Bonzo. I'm going to try line 4 again, and hopefully Donna will be on line 4. Donna, are you there?
I'm here, Alex.
I'm so sorry for losing you there. What would
That's
you like to
all
talk
right.
about?
The school meals debate,
Yes.
Alex. I've got 35 years background in food, and I just felt I really had to phone up. The bit about the mayonnaise and the tomato ketchup. I mean, the mayonnaise would be put in by the kitchen staff. So surely it's controlled the amount of mayonnaise that goes into that tuna. You can get low-fat mayonnaise, light mayonnaise.
Yep.
The tomato ketchup, rather than give it to the pupils themselves, and they help it, they use the bottle, would it not be better to put it in a little tiny portion? Again, you can get low sugar tomato ketchup. It doesn't have to be, the full sugar. I think I was reading on the website there, it's £150,000 a year they reckon they're wasting on food.
Yes.
I think listen to parents, listen to pupils. What do they actually want? It doesn't have to be held, it doesn't have to be held to be healthy. You can adjust meals so easily. Like, instead of chips, get potatoes, cut them into wedges, a little bit of olive oil, whichever, something light, sprayed on them in the oven. It doesn't have to be deep fried. I think the biggest problem is a lot of young people rather, it's the amount of snacks and drinks that are so unhealthy, and they don't really understand the labels. So instead of thinking they're drinking 100 mils of a certain soft drink, they're actually drinking 500. So the older students are probably thinking, oh, that's fine, it's only so much sugar. But in fact, they're misreading the label and thinking it's not actually, it's only 100 mils, it's not a 500 mil thing.
So, Donna, what do you think in terms of the school department or the education department should be doing, in a few words, as to this current situation? Should they stick to their guns?
No, I don't think they should really. I think they need to ask parents for feedback, look at what the pupils actually want. And the bit about the naked burger, students need carbohydrates. They don't need to be without bread. They need energy to run around. So why just give them the burger? They could give them a wholemeal burger, a wholemeal bread rather. It doesn't have to be white. So, yeah.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Donna. Thank you very much for your insight on that. It was really useful. Thank you. Thanks for calling.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you. Bye. Bye.
There we go. Nice to have some insight when it comes to the types of foods. I'm sure this will rumble on. Thank you very much for your comments. If you give kids a McDonald's for dinner, there'd be no wastage for sure. Yes, all right. Thank you to the person who pointed out that our cash is not accepted off island. Yes, we know that. And thank you to John, who says, if nature didn't make it, don't take it. Thanks, John. I might be back tomorrow or not. Who knows? Cheers.